Hi, this is Caitlin.
And this is Sharon.
And welcome to Real Housewives on Real Housewives, where we unravel housewives' story threads and keep the tea flowing.
So chic.
Hang on to your diamonds, and welcome to our pilot episode.
This is episode number 1, where we're digging into Diana from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, season 12.
So welcome to Real Housewives on Real Housewives.
Yay!
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Sharon.
So this is our episode about Diana. And I think my main impression of Diana, I think I've just said over and over, is how much I don't like her. So that's kind of where I'm starting from, but I might reel that back a little bit as we go. But she, so far, is probably one of my least favorites, maybe ever in Housewives. I just don't get her, I think.
That's a little harsh.
It's a lot harsh. I know.
That's a lot harsh.
That is a lot harsh.
Yeah. Okay, so Diana, I have very conflicted feelings about her.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, if she ordered the bots that attacked Garcelle's son, which we'll talk about later, then I really dislike her.
Yeah.
But if she did not do that, then I feel really conflicted about her.
Yeah, she could be misunderstood.
Yeah. Like in the beginning when she came on and she's super rich, and I kind of like seeing this over-the-top luxury from time to time. She has a really interesting backstory.
Yes.
She's got this young husband who married her. Like, he looks like he wants to start really kick off his career. And I don't know.
Music industry there. Yeah.
I guess I kind of wonder if she were in a different season, in a different time.
Yes.
Maybe I could have liked her.
That's what I've kind of come to feel like as we approached, going through all of this and taking our notes. Because initially I was like, oh, Diana, we're starting with, Diana, blah.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like I've reeled back in how I feel. So it took me forever, but she reminds me of Jennifer Coolidge, who's in Christopher Guest documentaries, she's not Waiting for Guffman, but she's in Best in Show. She's Stifler's mom. And she's been in those Old Navy Christmas commercials, while we've been watching The Real Housewives back. And so it always makes me think of her as Diana, because in those commercials, Jennifer Coolidge is like, #sorry not sorry. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Diana. I think that should have been her line. It's sorry not sorry, because seriously.
That would have been good, I think. But yeah, she's friends with a lot of famous people that you like.
That's true. No, in fact, it makes me worry because, in my head, I feel like I could have this amazing friendship with Sir Elton John and his husband and Neil Patrick Harris and David Burtka. I feel like, okay, I can hang with these people. They're fun, they're Broadway, I love all this. And then the fact that they consider her such a good friend, family, I think Elton John was on social media saying, you're already our favorite housewife.
Aww.
And maybe I just had higher hopes for her, thinking okay, I love these celebrities, I will love her, and not so much. But it worries me because this may be the thing that ruins my friendship with Neil Patrick Harris, yeah. And I don't know, this may come between us, and that's upsetting to me.
Yeah, I think we better get through your feelings.
Yes, I think so. But I could put them on hold for a minute. Do you want to do her intro?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, when Diana comes on, they're holding diamonds, right? Isn't that right?
Yes.
She says the only thing better than having it all is having even more, which I just love.
I do love
over the top intros like that that are ridiculous and all about being super rich. I don't know why. I just think
when she's so rich, it's how much more can she have?
Exactly. And so she was introduced in the second episode as a friend of Crystal,
yes.
Which, okay, so I didn't even remember she was introduced from Crystal.
I didn't either.
And I went back, because looking back, I'm like, do we ever actually see her talk to Crystal?
I'm not sure.
I seriously don't remember her talking to Crystal.
So here's my deep theory that now I've been thinking on this for days now. So it's in the back of my mind. I feel like she was brought on by Rinna, not Crystal. I feel like Lisa Rinna wanted somebody to go against Sutton, because I think the big problem with Diana is that we like Sutton, we're pro Sutton. So I feel like Diana just comes in completely anti-Sutton, she's not going to hear anything Sutton. I just don't think she gives Sutton a chance. So I feel like she was kind of gotten to beforehand and told, this Sutton girl, she's sketch, we're not having her. And so I kind of feel like Lisa Rinna brought her on. Because the other thing that made me think about it is when they're talking, and we can talk about this in Crystal's episode, but when they're talking with Crystal about when she loses her 14 friends. And it's a very specific number.
She must have a lot of friends. I don't have 14 friends.
I don't have 14 to lose.
So.
If you go anywhere, I'm in trouble. But but she was saying Crystal becomes friends with the most popular girl, and that's how she kind of gets her way into the group. So it almost made me feel like Rinna was like, oh, you know this girl, right? You know Diana. And then Crystal's like, oh, I totally know Diana. Like, all the time. I kind of wonder if Rinna kind of used Crystal to get her on the show. I don't know.
I can kind of see that.
I don't know. I feel like that because she and Crystal are not friends as near as I can tell.
Yeah, or at least they didn't show it. Mm-hmm. I mean, so you want me to go over her backstory a little bit?
Let's
so
do it.
Her real name apparently is Sanella.
Yeah, I don't know
Jenkins. I don't know how it's pronounced.
It's kind of pretty.
Like pretty, yeah. Mm-hmm. She's 49 years old. She's from Sarajevo, and she became a refugee at the age of 19 when she left for London. Her brother was killed during the war there in Sarajevo.
Yeah, I mean, she does have a real tragic backstory.
Yeah.
So I feel a little bit bad being harsh on her sometimes because when you hear her backstory and then later kind of what she goes through, I mean, she's dealing with a lot. So I may just be being a little harsh on her.
You're so mean.
I'm so mean.
So then she's in London and she talks about how she worked, some low-paying, difficult jobs until she meets her husband. Okay, and I read in this Vulture article, it was from July of 2022. And so it says she met her previous husband, Robert Jenkins, in 1999 at a gym, which when I read this, I was like, what is going on? Because I picture this like billionaire going to like Gold's Gym or whatever London has. Like when you go to a really fancy gym, I was like, surely if she's poor, she can afford to be at the fancy gym. But then I was like, maybe she worked at the gym.
That could be.
Because I'm sure he would go to like a gym.
I don't think he would.
Or wouldn't he have a personal trainer? I don't know.
You would think.
Yeah. I really wanted more to that story because that's got to be an amazing thing. Like you meet this millionaire dude. Like I guess I wanted
it's
more.
It's rags to riches for her. So like
I wanted the details of that, basically.
No, I think you're totally right. Because you're right. He's not just at Gold's Gym and she picked him up. Like, hey.
So then she and her husband got divorced in 2009. Apparently she talks about in the show how it was this amicable divorce and that she has two older kids. I think when they're like 20, they're in their 20s or 19 or something. And then she meets Asher Monroe at a Victoria's Secret event.
See, that makes more sense.
Yes.
I like the gym story.
Well, he's 15 years younger. And they have a baby together, Eliana, which I just think is a beautiful name.
Yeah, it is cute.
She was born in 2020. And okay, so while I was kind of looking up Diana, I found out, again, this is from that Vulture article, that she is the CEO of Neuro Brands, neuro like neurology. It's, quote, a lifestyle drink company. And then it had this note in the article about how in 2016, the company had to pay some kind of fine because of misleading health claims about the products, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where Diana was when we met her coming in. And she wasn't introduced until the second episode.
That's right. And Crystal called her like glitterati. She was an it girl. I just liked the term glitterati.
I know, I like that. Wait, what is glitter? I think it's like Illuminati. Like what is?
Oh, I know. I think it's like
paparazzi.
No,
what is the E? What is the inner?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, now that you say that,
it
does sound like paparazzi. Okay, yeah, I don't know. It just like it fit to me in my head, but now I don't know. Okay, my Diana thing too that I think drove me kind of crazy is her lip licking, which she addresses in the reunion.
Yeah.
But she constantly, no matter what she's doing, she's licking her lips, even when she's not talking. She's licking her lips. Like it is so distracting. So maybe that's why I have no idea what she's about because I just couldn't.
And I feel so bad because I never noticed that until the reunion, and now it's all I see.
All you can
and I wish that they hadn't pointed that out because I just feel bad. That's one of those things that's so awkward that like you can't really fix.
And I could see myself totally doing that.
Oh yeah.
Again, that's why we're on the air and not the TV.
Yes. Faces that were, what is it, like made for radio?
We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about this first time we see her?
Yes. Okay. So the first time we see her, and this is our first feud that we're going to bring in. So this is Diana versus Sutton. And really, that's probably the main. Yeah. Until we get to Garcelle. But like you said, a lot of that comes out after. So as this season is filming, the big fight with Diana is Sutton. So we meet Diana in episode 2 at Harry Hamlin's birthday dinner, which is Lisa Rinna's husband. And so Sutton and Rinna, some things had gone on before the show even started filming. Sutton went and watched What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. And basically, it's kind of, it sort of involves last season. So last season, her friend Garcelle was kind of taken to task for was it that she didn't text? No, she did text, but she didn't
Oh, she never said thank you for some
Yeah.
pasta sauce that Harry Hamlin made.
Yeah.
Or maybe she said thank you, but didn't
But she didn't
write.
text. That's
or
what it
didn't
was.
text
She said it
Yes.
at the dinner, but she didn't like
Yes. It was
reiterate
not
it.
documented.
Yes. Yeah. So she couldn't, Lisa was upset she couldn't show Harry a thank you, I think was what it was.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sutton was upset with that. So when she went on Watch What Happens Live, she basically said, well, when I was at the Elton John charity event, I booked a table and invited Rinna and Hamlin as my guests, and they never sent me a thank you, and just kind of left it as this ... moment on air. So when we get to the dinner, well, initially Sutton says, oh, it is Harry's day. Like, I'm not going to bring it up. We're not going to bring this up. And of course we sit down, the husbands leave, and it's the first thing that we go to talk about. And then all of a sudden, is it Rinna or somebody's like, oh, and then we have Diana here, and she's the backer of the event, and she has all the information.
Yeah. So she could kind of tell us what happens, even though it's still totally unclear by the end.
So unclear.
Like, Sutton apparently canceled she bought the table, canceled the table, is what she's accused of.
Yeah.
Leaving Rinna and Harry Hamlin to scramble and find another way to get into the event.
So they ended up at the IMDb table or something like that. But what was confusing too is I feel like when Sutton showed the receipt, Diana was kind of like, well, yeah, that's a receipt. But again, you can cancel it later.
Yeah, you could have paid and then cancel later is what Dorit
But
said.
Diana doesn't even back up. Like, no one is backed up. Like, I ended up leaving that being like, okay, so who's telling the truth? It was very unclear.
I mean, I feel like, especially Diana could tell us because she runs the event, but Diana was very like,
she should have a guest
classless, but she didn't want to
Yeah.
get into it. She was like, this is kind of like tacky type thing.
It's just funny because she touted herself as all nouveau riche.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
like, the first words out of her
It's, like,
mouth are so classless.
Yeah. So she wasn't really having it, so we never really, but it did show us, it kind of started that thing where she's this really charitable person.
Yes.
And these relationships she has. And she does talk a lot about like her
I think that's important to her.
Philanthropy is that the word?
Yeah.
Her charity and stuff.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of where it starts. It starts really slowly simmering. She doesn't come out with a bang. It's just that kind of like, that's classless.
And then she and Sutton kind of have a little meeting and they talk. And Diana basically says that Sutton is clumsy with her words and with her behavior. And she goes back to that constantly. Sutton is clumsy. And I think, to be fair, Sutton is clumsy. But again, I guess I feel like, is there actual malice behind her, or is she just kind of clumsy?
So.
I think she's just kind of clumsy.
I agree. I mean, we both really like Sutton, and I just think she's just one of those people that, well, like me, says stupid things, and she doesn't mean them.
Our kids are always like, that's so cringy. Yeah. Like, Sutton can be very cringy. She'll say something, and it's like, no, why would you do that? Like, you know they're filming you, Sutton.
Or if you know you're like that, you shouldn't go on a reality TV.
Exactly. See, I wouldn't, because I think Sutton can't think as fast to answer.
Yeah.
And I know I couldn't. I would be in trouble. But I do think it also backs up that Rinna had already kind of prejudiced her.
Like,
she was prejudiced against her.
Yeah, she basically didn't like her from the beginning.
Yes, and I feel like Rinna had already given her the rundown. Like, she didn't come in going, oh, I haven't heard of this. She knew. So I do feel like that kind of sets up the idea that
they're on different teams.
Exactly, they're on different teams. And then it's kind of funny because when she's talking a little bit about Sutton is when she's in Kyle's new store. And one of my favorite Diana moments is when she's like, oh, I've never heard of outlets. And then and then Kyle's store, she's like, this is my first store opening. It's like, okay, we get it. You're super rich.
Yeah, I know. I'm so rich. I've never been to a store.
And then she was like, oh, the clothes are pretty. I'd even wear them at my own house. Like, that's my favorite. Like, not out of the house.
Yeah.
Like, I have things that I would also only wear in my own house.
Yeah, sweats.
They're not nice. I did not pay for them. What I bet Kyle's things cost.
Oh, where did the bacon eating vegetarian happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think when they're first talking, Sutton explains that to her, but then she uses it over and over. But yeah, tell him that line, because I love that line.
So Diana is so offended because Sutton is a vegetarian who occasionally eats bacon, and she routinely calls her throughout the season a bacon eating vegetarian, but she says it like in all seriousness, like, this is her character, guys. She's a bacon-eating vegetarian. Like, that says it all right there, which I just find really funny and amusing.
Like, I think she just means, like, oh, she's contradictory. But at the same time, like, who isn't? Like, I think every one of us has some form of a bacon-eating vegetarian in us. Like, there's something that you do that you're also like, okay, well, that kind of contradicts. Diana being one of those people, too, I think. The other thing, and it's before they head down to Mexico, but... And then I guess it's kind of a trigger warning, but Diana has a miscarriage, and it's a pretty serious big deal. The problem is, I feel like the way that they film it, it's a little confusing, because initially when she's talking to Kyle about it, so this was after Ellie. She was like, when Ellie was, I don't know, like 5 months old, I think. She said that she'd lost the baby, but it was like somewhere past 12 weeks, right? So I mean, that's a big loss. And this was a moment when we were kind of going back through the notes where I was like, okay, maybe I was too tough on Diana. Like, I don't think she and I would be friends. But at the same time, I think when I think back to after having my babies and the hormones and everything that you go through, it's like, yeah, maybe she should have been cut a little slack. Like, maybe we should have said, dude, what she's going through is really rough. Yeah. And I think, again, that's sort of the age difference. Like, this group is not into baby showers and stuff. Like, I think they joke about that at one point. Like, all these women have older kids who are, like, heading off to college. And, you know, like, Crystal's the young one in the group. So then Diana's not the young one, but then she has these little babies and she's dealing with all this. And I think the women have just completely forgotten. And I could see how you would forget not being in that part of your life.
Then she felt like people were being dismissive of it.
Yeah.
And that just hit her hard.
I think so.
Yes. So they go to Mexico and they go on Dorit's yacht.
Yeah. Oh, and we have Diana versus the hotel.
Oh, Diana versus, yes. Please talk about that.
Sharon, what happens when Diana goes to a hotel?
Well, she's got to bring the Ghostbusters.
She sends people ahead of time to set it up.
Yeah. They like bring, I don't know, incense. I don't know, all these weird things.
There was
cleanse
candles
the rooms,
and there was,
maybe crystals. I like crystals, but I don't know. Stuff like that.
No, they had everything all set up for her. And I remember in Mexico, they were freaked out because the closet wasn't, like, the rack wasn't tall enough, so all of her dresses were not, like, hanging straight. They were, you know, when they sort of catch on the ground, they were bending. Her dresses were bending.
When you're that rich, that's probably unacceptable.
And they don't show how they fix it. I mean, it's upsetting to me because I'm like, you're going to bring this up, you're going to say she's not going to be happy.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about, like, I mean, roll in a garment. Those rolly garment things. I mean, I think there was a way to fix it. So it's like, I think the big thing in Mexico is that all the day stuff is fine. They go on the boat. But the boat is kind of the start of it. So what happens is they're sitting on the kind of the, what's that, the bow of the boat? I don't know. The front of the boat is called.
I watched a lot of Below Deck.
I know. I feel embarrassed that we don't know the term. Well, we know below deck. We don't know what's on
That's
deck.
True. Good point.
So, yeah, we're not usually up there on the, I'm going to go with bow of the boat. That could be wrong. So they're up on the bow of the boat, and it's Diana, Sutton, and Garcelle. And they're talking, and I think that initially that first night, Garcelle had gotten into it a little bit with Diana over her book, which we could talk about maybe a little bit later. But she was upset that Diana didn't want to basically share something about her life. She thought she was being rude to Dorit and that she wasn't giving. Like, I think they just felt like she was. And honestly, up to that point, she really hadn't said much to the girls about her life or anything. And so she does share. And as I watched that back too, I thought, okay, so see, maybe she is feeling like she was sharing because she did share this tidbit with Garcelle and with Sutton about her brother being killed in the war and them not knowing what happened and then finding out that he was dead and that it was this huge, awful, terrible moment, probably the worst in her life, she'd kind of said. And so what happens here is that then Sutton listens, and then this is kind of where I think we have to talk ourselves through this too, because I think the big thing we're going to keep going back to is whether Sutton can listen, whether she's capable of it, whether she does, or whether she feels like connecting is pointing out something similar in your own life. What Sutton does is says, well, my dad killed himself, and it's really hard when you lose someone quickly and you don't get a chance to say goodbye.
Yeah, and right as she says that, they like go to Diana's face, and she has glasses on, sunglasses, but you can kind of see like
she
kind of turns away. Like
Yeah.
she's obviously upset by that. So I was a little surprised because I didn't think Sutton was being unkind.
It makes me wonder, do you think they cut a lot? Like, does Sutton go on and we're not seeing that because it's boring? As Diana will call Sutton later.
Yeah, she cannot accept that.
I can't decide whether, because it seems like from where we're sitting that what happens when Sutton comes on is she kind of says, oh, I have a similar thing. Yeah. I had a miscarriage too. Or I had someone in my life, immediately become out of my life. Yeah. And to me, it feels like, okay, she's connecting. But I worry, like, is she going, I don't know, Diana thinks she's making it about herself.
The miscarriage thing later did not come off well.
No, it didn't.
I thought that this came off fine. I thought she was really trying to relate to her. But I guess the fact that Diana didn't think so, and then going into later conversations, it was already like, well, you're all by yourself.
Exactly.
You don't care.
And so I guess it's like I would understand had those situations been flipped. But in the order in which
Yeah.
they happened, why was Diana shutting her down so fast?
I
That was
really
confusing.
don't understand that.
Kyle says at one point, when Diana is quiet, something is brewing. And I was like, yeah. And so now whenever I kind of like see her get really quiet, it's like, oh, you're shooting that happy.
Yeah, you get scared.
She's mad at you. The other thing that happened, so I think the big thing with them is the dinners in Mexico. So
Yes.
they're down in Mexico just on a girls' trip. And the biggest moment I think that stands out is that Sutton essentially snaps at Diana, and we kind of had this discussion as to was Sutton yelling or not. Because Diana pulls back to the discussion where she learned, I think, that she was a bacon-eating vegetarian, and she said that Sutton said, I do not like screaming. And so then Diana's like, well, why would you scream at me? Because what happens is that Diana chimes in when Sutton is talking about Crystal, and Crystal says, well, you said that you hate me, you love me, and Sutton's like, no, that's not what I said. Like, she does that, no, no, ma'am. She gets her, like, Southern, and she basically cuts her off at the pass, and Diana's like, no, I heard you say it. And what's hard is, as we were watching it back too, Diana does poke Sutton. Like, she constantly goes, why do I have to care?
Yeah.
It's
But
hard.
Sutton really did say it.
She did.
And Diana is all about, like, the pointing out the contradiction. Okay,
she
bacon-eating vegetarian was
Yeah.
like strike one. And
exactly.
Now
And
she's
she's like,
got to find
all she
supporting
does.
evidence.
Yeah. Like, I'm adding this to my
Yes.
thesis. Like,
Exactly.
and the problem, I think, with Diana is she acts like, well, I didn't do anything, but she jumps in with these critiques of Sutton that it's sort of like, yeah, maybe you just needed to sit quietly. Like, maybe you didn't need to jump in there. But, like, clearly something is bothering her and she can't get it out. So it comes out in these little small things at Sutton. And so they're just passing in the night. Like, they're just not going to line up.
Yeah.
And Sutton actually leaves the table after the screaming thing. And we were kind of talking about that because I feel like I get blamed for the screaming thing. Everyone in my family is super loud.
They are. I can
You can hear them from here.
They're really loud. So
it's like whenever I yell, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my God, she's screaming. And half the time I'm like, I just raised my voice to be heard above you people.
Yeah.
And I felt like a little bit that's what happened with Sutton. Like, nobody was listening. They were all Sutton, Sutton, Sutton. And so she went a little bit louder. And then she was screaming, and then that upset her. And I get that because I've been there.
For me, when you say screaming on Housewives, like,
I think your hair should fly back.
Like, I'm thinking like, Teresa flipping a table. It's like the classic.
That's
that
screaming.
to me is housewife screaming. Like what Sutton does is nowhere near what I would call screaming.
And she's still even in control.
Yeah.
Like, she's getting upset.
Oh, but one thing about that dinner, I think that Diana looked really pretty at that dinner. Like that was one of the prettiest I thought she looked. She was wearing this like green gown and her hair was in a pony with like because Caitlin and I were talking about how she looks amazing for being 49. She like doesn't have a wrinkle, and I don't know if that's because she's rich. But then the other women are rich too, and she still looks
like
even
does she
better.
have secret plastic surgery?
I know. I want to know what she does.
That's the more in her tagline. Like
Yes,
even more. That's what it is. So really, that's their big issue in Mexico, and I guess we kind of leave it as a agree to disagree between the two of them.
Yeah,
because they don't get along, and to each other's face they're mildly cordial, but behind the scenes and in the interviews they're not.
And then when they get back from Mexico is Garcelle's birthday party.
Yes.
And that's where, the stuff kind of hits the fan a little bit.
And this is where it's like, up until this point, we're kind of going, well, did Diana, like at this point, Sutton is beyond clumsy with her words. Like Sutton this was not good. Like I can maybe understand her intention possibly, but she really pokes and she's coming to fight.
Well, let's start with that. Okay, so basically Garcelle is having a birthday party. Before the birthday party, Diana sends this text that basically starts everything off in a bad place.
Yeah.
So Diana sends this text to the group, and okay, so I hit pause 9 million times and transcribe this. I don't normally do this in a group text, but doctors are putting me on bed rest to stop bleeding. This trip in flying and drinking and burning my candle at both ends after losing baby, bleeding for 8 weeks straight after miscarriage, and 4 major surgeries that followed in last few weeks to save my uterus was not a very intelligent thing to do. I usually wouldn't share this in a group text because it makes me look like a whiny, but Garcelle, misspelled, might think I'm rude, so there it is. So it was like sympathy, and then all of a sudden she like throws a jab at Garcelle.
She just always has to jab. I guess that's my thing with Diana. I wish she would just say it. Just say it and leave it. Let it stand by itself.
Well, I think she just felt weak, and she didn't want to feel weak, so she had to throw a jab, like, see, I'm tough.
But also because it's Garcelle's birthday, it was like, that was a little grumpy.
And then, so basically, Garcelle is like, okay. You know? And then Diana shows up to her party with Asher, and she comes in and she goes, "It's dead indeed." And her and Asher are both wearing like these black feathery jackets, and they match, and it's really bizarre.
Disney villain, I feel like. I know. It's very Maleficent.
And Sutton is a little snarky about, you know, Diana was on her deathbed, but now she's at this party.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they start this conversation. Sutton comes up to Diana and basically says, you know, can I borrow you for a minute?
Yeah,
The Bachelor. Exactly. She wants to go talk to her. So
what's interesting too is I kind of feel like, I almost wonder if Sutton was trying to sort of match Diana. Like she was like, well, she's pointing out my contradiction, so now I'm going to point out hers. Because I've been trying to figure out where this comes from. Like, why say to somebody? But I guess when you read that text, it's like, wow, I didn't know you were going through all that. And I think us up to that point too. Like, we're seeing her on the trip. We're seeing her in pretty dresses. We're seeing her looking completely normal and happy. And so I think it is kind of a little bit out of left field when we find all that out. But why you would then throw that in someone's face, I don't understand.
I don't know what, like, when I saw this scene with Sutton, I was like,
I hated every moment of it.
So bad. I was like, Sutton, no, shut up.
It's awful.
Because Diana says, Sutton says, like, you're on bed rest, but you're here. That's confusing. And it's just it's so rude and none of her business and just not kind to someone that's going through that. And so Sutton really was in the wrong, I think, in this conversation.
Absolutely.
And after that, and honestly, if I were in the situation Diana was in, because she's probably feeling extremely emotional about what just happened. Yeah. I'm not sure if I could come back from that. Someone could, that to me was really painful. The other stuff all seemed like a bunch of nothing. Yeah. But that was really painful, and I think I just don't see how they could get past that.
I agree. I think as the viewer up until that point, I mean, so I feel like we had to go back and like pull out all these, okay, so they are starting, because initially I guess I didn't see what the huge problem was with them. And so when Sutton does this and you really haven't like thought about all these little teeny tiny moments, it really feels like, whoa, like this is out of left field. Like you are being aggressive for no reason. And then Diana's being aggressive for more of a reason, but still she's pretty aggressive and she's good at it, where Sutton's not.
And I almost felt like Diana thought, so Sutton was like, well, I had 2 miscarriages. And maybe she was trying to connect, even though she was kind of being a little bit like...
I felt like she was at first. Yeah. But
then I almost think Diana saw it as like a...
one up.
She's saying, well, I had 2 miscarriages and it's not that, like she was dismissing it because she had 2. Like, it's not that bad, blah, blah, blah.
I think you could have read it
I think she thought that's what she... Which I doubt that's what Sutton meant, you know? Yeah. It just all went wrong.
Yeah. I feel like if Sutton had maybe started with saying to Diana, like, how are you doing? And Diana kind of explained, and Sutton hadn't gone, well, now, shouldn't you be on bed rest?
Well, she did kind of say, at first I want to check on you.
She did.
But yeah.
And if she just continued with that, let her, and again, listened. If she just listened and let Diana say what she wanted to say about it, and then maybe said, I hear you, I had 2 miscarriages, and it's awful. Yeah. And then left it at that, I still think Diana would have been mad. But I think it might have been less mad or less one-upmanship, or
I think they kind of recovered from that.
They did, exactly.
No,
but what happens?
No, not that conversation. And then the best thing is, my favorite part of this conversation is when it's like all this emotional stuff. So then Diana's like, well, Sutton is fake, but worse, she's boring. Yeah, she cannot forgive boring. It's kind of like, again, she was like in this emotional place, so she just like lashes out with this kind of like.
Because when Garcelle comes over, she's like, oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah. She's like, I told Sutton she's boring.
Exactly. Okay. I was like, okay, but that wasn't actually, there's a bigger problem here. And then Kyle kind of gets embroiled with it. And I do not like how Kyle handles the whole thing, but we can talk about that under Kyle.
Yeah, and then and it's like Diana's trying to pick a fight with Garcelle. It just wasn't good. That conversation really sticks out as like the worst part of that season for the two of them, I
think. Diana thinks that Sutton is mocking her miscarriages. I don't think that she is, but I do think she says not nice things about it, and I think she really needed to back off.
But then the other thing you and I were talking about was how Diana can dish it but can't take it.
Yes.
Sometimes Diana will, anytime someone takes a jab at her, she's extremely defensive.
Extremely.
Which I would be too, but I
Yeah.
don't go around insulting people.
Exactly.
I don't want them
like to
insult me
start
back.
off the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, and I just think the whole thing is just, it's super cringy. It's even like not even passive aggressive. It's just aggressive on both sides. Like the
Yes.
things that just go back and forth about the thing. And then they kind of make up. Diana gives Sutton a hug. And I don't know, I just felt like it was kind of just to end the conversation. Later we find out Sutton thought it was more, honest than it was. And Diana was like, no, it's the fakest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So because they'll go to dinner, or not, lunch, I don't know.
I think it's lunch.
Yeah, lunch. It looked more
It
daytime.
appeared more
yeah.
lunchtime-y.
Yeah, so they'll go to dinner or lunch, whatever time of day. Some people call lunch dinner. Maybe Diana does
They
because she's
do?
so fancy. Yeah. And then
Who?
supper is dinner.
Well, yeah, supper. I've heard of supper as dinner because that's what my mom called it.
So
growing
I'm
up,
just using
supper.
the fancy. When I say
okay.
dinner, I mean
Is supper
no,
fancy? I thought supper was
I
not
don't think
fancy.
it is fancy,
Okay.
but I think dinner for lunch can be fancy. I don't know.
Breakfast
This
for what
is
about
why
breakfast for
no
dinner?
one's handing us a
Because
dime.
I told my kids we're going to do breakfast for dinner.
Yeah, see, there you go. That throws the whole thing. I mean, what do you even call that? Like, who even knows?
I don't know.
Anyway, I don't think they actually eat, so I guess it doesn't matter.
That's true. That's a really good point.
But pretty much Sutton claims she was trying to bond with her. Diana says, like, she had to scrub herself after lunch with Sutton and that she was so fake. And that Diana's apology was so fake. And then what did you loved her, what she's wearing at the dinner.
Yeah. So she's got this Gucci hat on, which it's like a black baseball cap. It sits kind of like high above her ears. So it looks kind of strange. Like it reminds me of like if my dad wears a hat and it's like doesn't fully fit
That's
on
not
his
how we
head.
wear the hat.
I know.
Like,
And
yeah.
I'm like, sometimes you know how like really expensive things they look weird, but they're supposed to look weird.
Yeah, like I paid a lot of
And that
money for this to
shows
look
that
like
they're
this.
better. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. I totally didn't get it. It's just
I
really
think it was an
distracted
aggressive
me.
hat move. Like she was like, I don't know what Sutton's gonna wear, but I'm wearing the aggressive Gucci hat.
It totally threw me off because the whole time I'm like,
And they're at like a fancy restaurant, and I'm also kind of like, really?
Yeah.
The baseball hat in the restaurant? Like that, I don't feel like
I thought that was
flowed very well.
classless.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So then Diana has a Christmas party. What's interesting is that is not her house that we see. You know, it's
Oh,
that,
that's right,
it's that
that's
sort of
right.
one-story wooden abode. It's very pretty, but she's renting it. So, and I don't know if that's just because she really wanted to, again, keep her life so private. Like I think there is a huge curtain up with Diana. Like she won't even show her real house. I don't know. It's interesting. So she gets ready to have the Christmas party there. And really, I feel like not a lot happens with Diana from the moment she has that lunch or dinner
Yeah.
with Sutton through to essentially Aspen.
Yeah.
They just kind of stay out of each other's orbit,
Yeah.
essentially.
I think they agree. They hate each other. And then in Aspen, nothing good comes of Aspen.
Nope.
So that's where that scene where Erica, they're just the whole group is sitting around and
it really
Erica-
becomes a pile on Sutton. I guess
Yes.
maybe that's why Sutton ends up feeling more sympathetic at the end.
Yeah, so basically Eric calls Sutton a bad word. See you next Tuesday.
Which
and
we would argue is one of the worst words. But at the reunion,
Yes.
there's
So-
some discussion as to whether that or evil is the worst word.
Yeah, but then Diana says, "But you are one," like piling on Sutton.
Yeah.
Which was, and she laughed about it. She like cackled.
It
with
was
Eric
kind
about
of cruel, the
It
way.
was mean. It was very mean girl. Oh, and also we didn't mention the kind of mean girl thing on the way home from Mexico.
Oh, yes.
Sutton wanted to sit next to Diana and some of the ladies, and basically she wouldn't let them sit with her.
Yeah.
Kind of like
She was like, go back to your
high
seats
school
we had on
lunch.
the way out or whatever.
Yeah,
It
and
was
that's
very
kind
high
of mean
school.
girl. So, yeah, it never got back to good. Well,
Nope.
it never was good. Just,
Never, it was
never
bad.
recovered.
It got worse and worse.
yeah. And then at the reunion, yeah, nothing.
No, not much.
So,
All right, wrapping up Diana versus Sutton. Who wins?
so ultimately, I think Diana wins. But this is really hard for me to say because I like Sutton better.
Yes.
But I feel like Sutton had too many harsh moments that really made it hard to carry on a friendship for the two of them. It's just about miscarriage, such a sensitive topic.
Yes.
It just requires a lot more I don't know.
Yeah. Understanding.
Care with her feelings.
Caring,
Yeah.
They kept saying empathy with her, and I kept going, is that it? But yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. And so, I would say Diana wins.
Yeah.
But
and
I love you, Sutton.
I know, I agree. See, and honestly, I had written in my notes, Sutton. But after we've talked through this whole thing, it's Diana. Like, I think we've given Sutton such a benefit of the doubt because we like her, because we're like, oh, she didn't mean it.
Yeah.
But there's only so many times you can say she didn't mean it.
Yes.
And no matter how much Diana's poking at her, it's not cool what she said.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, she's responsible for her words. And she does apologize.
Yeah,
And that gives her some credit. And, like, I think because we love her friendship with Garcelle, who we'll discuss next, I think that gives us, a reason to like her. But ultimately, yeah, Diana.
Yeah. And, there's one more, but Diana does win no matter what, because she and Asher announced this month in December that they are expecting a baby.
Okay, well, then she definitely wins.
So congratulations to her.
Congratulations.
Healthy pregnancy.
Okay, that's awesome. That is
that.
awesome. I guess going through it all, ultimately, if she comes out,
with a
good
baby.
for her and good for Asher. All right, so our next battle is Diana versus Garcelle. So we'd kind of discussed how, I think a little bit earlier, the majority of their battling comes forth in the reunion after they've kind of seen what each other has said, and then also just some things that have happened after the filming stopped. We can kind of go back to Mexico just really briefly. You can tell in those arguments that they don't like each other. And I think some of it is Garcelle backing Sutton. Mm-hmm. I think that she's really, they're friends. They've got each other's backs. So I think, again, the way we felt Diana was predisposed to not like Sutton, Garcelle is kind of predisposed to not like Diana.
Yeah, and at that one dinner in Mexico where Garcelle brings up the Room 23 book.
Yes.
For anyone who's not aware, this was like it was a book of pictures of celebrities, I guess. That was maybe a little bit risque.
Lisa Rinna was in it.
Yeah,
so.
and apparently people said that it was supposedly like a book of call girls. I don't understand it at all, why people would think that.
Yeah, and so she really didn't want to discuss it. I think Garcelle thought she was being rude by not discussing it, but I think ultimately there was just so many lies wrapped up in it for her, bad rumors that had come out of it.
Yes.
It wasn't a call girl book. It wasn't all these things. And so I think she just was like, I don't talk about it.
Which Caitlin and I were like, doesn't that take a long time to go from picture to press to make it seems like there'd be you could put it on the internet.
Yeah, this just doesn't seem like the best method.
It's not seem like the most efficient business decision.
Exactly. So it does seem kind of silly the more you think about it.
I totally don't get that.
I don't either.
Maybe I just don't understand that. But
I mean, again, I feel like that's another thing where she's just so rich.
Yeah.
That, it is outside of our understanding.
Yes.
It just doesn't fit in our... we were saying, in college, we'd use the yearbooks to, look for people. So maybe it's, the rich person version of that. You're like, no, I had math with Sean. Wait, hold on. There's a celebrity in here I like.
Table book with a naked picture.
Just go over. It's under my art book and my fashion book.
But then Garcelle when Diana comes to Garcelle's birthday party, she does bring her a copy of that book as a present. Yes. And I kind of couldn't tell if they kind of both laughed about it. I can't tell if Diana's being kind of cheeky or I just really didn't know.
I couldn't tell if it came from the heart or not.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't tell if it's hey, here's my book, or if it's
yeah. I think that's the issue maybe at the heart of Diana. She's so hard to read.
Exactly.
It's you can't tell, is she being genuine or is she not? And so it's you just can't decide because you don't know her. And she doesn't give us a way to figure it out. So I think that's a hard thing. She's hard to read.
Totally. And then the whole...
Oh, yeah. So we're going to have trouble saying it because it is just hard to say.
Okay.
We could talk about it a little bit maybe when we talk about Dorit, but Dorit, I can't even say it. She's part of a charity, and it is a lovely charity, but the name needs workshopping, and I think even Kathy Hilton would agree with me on that. It is called, I'm so afraid I'm going to say it wrong, Homeless Not Toothless. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And here's the thing. So everyone tries not to laugh when they say this,
because they have it backwards for most of the time.
They kept saying toothless, not homeless, or I don't know.
They can't keep it straight.
And part of me was okay, after this episode where everyone kind of was
it's
oh my God, the
confusing.
name. But I was like, they should change it. But this is like the best
It is.
advertising.
It is.
Everyone knows their charity now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Maybe they can abbreviate
I mean, they
or
could just
something
like get both websites, like get it both ways. So if you hit their website,
like either one you type, you'll go there. That's awesome. But yeah, during that time is kind of when essentially Diana says to Garcelle, like, you've shut me down as a friend. And Garcelle's like, well, you trashed me in that text and you were awful at my birthday party, which both things are true. And then Lisa Rinna kind of throws her 2 cents in and says, like, Garcelle, you need to come from a place of love in the relationship, which of course doesn't go over well. But I agree. I think overall, Garcelle thinks that Diana is full of it and vice versa.
Yeah.
Pretty much how the season goes.
Yeah. And then we go into the reunion.
Yeah.
And the reunion is where most of the sort of fighting happened because basically it turns out Garcelle's son received these really horrible racist comments, and one of which also said, tell your mom to leave Diana alone or you'll deal with us. And then her son posted these threats that he got.
Yeah, and they're very upsetting.
Yes.
Like, it was real dark to kind of see all that coming up.
It was really bad. And then Diana, I guess instead of being like, oh my God, that's horrible, Diana wanted her name, tell your mom to leave Diana alone or deal with us. She wanted that removed from the son's post. And she was worried her family's getting threats because of that. And Diana texted to Garcelle, believe me when I say that if anything happens to my children, you will be held legally responsible and no Bravo contract will stop me. I guess by making sure you take down my birthday post, you wanted to solidify me as a racist and actually ruin my life. And it's just kind of strange because Garcelle's son is in this really hard place. Yes. He got these horrible messages, and Diana is just focused on how it affects her, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of what she accused Sutton of a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is that, it's like in the moment where Garcelle is trying to be a mom who's supportive to her son, who's receiving these terrifying things and these awful things and is probably super upset. She's basically like, now, could you just step to the side, calm down a moment, and edit that post to get my name out of it? And it's like, no, she's got to deal with her son.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about this earlier, and the way that we kind of felt like this could have been handled better would be not to be so focused on Jax, and which is Garcelle's son, and on what he needed to change, and sort of let him deal with it how he needs to safely deal with it. But for them to have come together and said, no one's family should be threatened. We may not like each other, but we stand by each other saying, stop threatening each other. We're coming together to say, threatening families, no, this shouldn't happen.
But I guess where they won't come together is because Garcelle, it says she sort of believes Diana is behind these texts. So Garcelle says basically that Diana hired these bots to send these texts. Diana, of course, denies it. Yeah. And I now know what bots are.
Yeah, that confused us.
They're
had to ask Sharon's husband. They're not like the robots that clean the floor.
They're not like my vacuum.
They're smarter, apparently.
Yeah,
they can
apparently you can hire these, and so this is what I don't get. They send insults. They send bad comments. I don't understand. Do they tailor it?
We're confused. Do you choose
bad
comments? At which point, that is your fault.
Yes,
like, if you sent a list
do they give you like a menu?
Speaking points. Yeah,
exactly.
Circle the bad things you like said.
And then my husband was like, no, a lot of times it's people that you hire. But then I'm like, yeah, so do the people sit and research and or they just send random bad? And so apparently Diana filed a lawsuit to try to figure out where the bots were coming from.
Which does make me kind of feel like maybe she didn't. I don't know.
And then Garcelle says she's investigating. So in the end, there's tension there because Garcelle thinks Diana could have been involved with it possibly. So
yeah,
I mean, so the whole thing is just really ugly.
It's really ugly.
I mean, who wins in that?
Yeah. I think Garcelle.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that anybody wins when you threaten families. So really they both lose to some extent. But I think Garcelle is in the right here. I think she handled it. She tried to take care of her child and her family. And then for Diana to kind of step in and go, take my name out of this. And then to send a threatening text, not really threatening, but a mean text.
Yeah.
When she's in the middle of dealing with threatening texts, I don't think that was very cool either.
I agree. You took the phrase. You took my phrase, Caitlin. I
Sorry,
was gonna say in the right too. I agree.
Yeah.
I think Garcelle's in the right, and So I guess Sorry, Diana.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad because I feel like both of these arguments are a bit like, well, really nobody wins.
Yes.
We, the viewer, did not win.
Yeah,
They didn't win. But I guess someone's a little more right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to end with our most exciting fight, though. And that is Diana versus Science.
So basically, Diana has a line of drinks. It's called it was something like Neurosonic. It was an energy drink. Neurosleep is a healthy sleep drink. So they're like a lifestyle drink.
Yeah, the tagline is like Neuro, drink with a purpose. It is naturally crafted to enhance your life, and you discover the perfect combination of vitamins, minerals, superfruits, and more in these well-balanced and delicious beverages.
Okay. So the first one we're going to try, because we have the energy and the sleep one.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with the energy one.
We decided that made the most sense. Up and then down.
So we're going to try this. It's red. It says infusion.
Yeah, what is a superfruit, by the way?
Superfruit. I don't know, like blueberries?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's red.
Not blue, I don't know.
The thing is red. Okay.
It's fizzy.
It's fizzy. I did not expect that. But it's kind of like when you've let your Diet Coke sit for a little while.
Yes.
And it's a little bit not fully fizzy.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's good. It tastes artificial, even though it has natural flavors.
It doesn't have a bad aftertaste though.
But it doesn't,
Yeah.
But I like artificial. Like I drink Diet Coke all the time.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go like fancy Crystal Light.
Yes, I agree.
It's kind of like a lighter Crystal Light. It's Crystal Light.
It's like I actually kind of like it. I don't think I'd buy it because it's.
I don't
more
know if I
expensive
can
than my Diet
taste
Coke,
the
but-
reverse osmosis filtered water though. I don't know that I'm getting.
I just get this tiny
just
hints
it's
of reverse
just
osmosis.
regular water. That's all like.
Now we should do the sleep
Okay,
one.
let's try
Which
the sleep.
actually we should have done the sleep.
Oh,
and then
we
the
would have gotten
energy to
jazzed back
see, and then
up.
see if
Oh,
it woke us up.
shoot.
The
We'll
sleep
never
one
know
says
now.
tangerine dream, and I'll just start off by saying I don't like orange flavored things.
Yeah, so we're already down a notch. Okay, it's not carbonated though,
It's not carbonated.
which is funny because it kind of made that psh noise
It's
when I
weird.
opened it, but no,
I don't care for it. It's not like bad. I'm sure
Yeah,
someone
it's
would
palatable.
like it, but it's.
But it's even lighter. Like it's crystal. What are we down to now?
Light.
Light.
It's like my mom who like dilutes everything like 10 times more than you're supposed to, and it's really gross.
Like, oh, you're only supposed to put 4 ounces
Yeah.
of osmosis reversed water, but you did 8. So, or no,
Yeah.
14 and a half. Sorry.
So,
Yeah,
I
not
think-
bad. But also, I think it's too bright to be like. I don't think of orange as a sleepy time flavor.
I agree. It should have been like
Lavender, exactly.
So I think Neurosonic clearly won. I think
Yeah.
there's other ones too. out
Absolutely,
there.
Neurosonic is the definite winner.
Yeah, and we found it. Well, Caitlin found it at Walmart.
I did.
And we're not in a big city or anything, so
No, that means it's everywhere.
yeah, that means it's like a pretty big deal.
Exactly. You know, you could mix some of the vodka from the Housewives. It's like when you have those, like, you know.
I'll have a Vita Sonic.
Exactly. Now there's a drink. I think we
Yes.
invented something amazing. All right, well, we discovered who won there, and that was a lot easier than our other arguments, I
know.
guess. We just need to taste more things, I
Yeah.
think. All right, everybody. Well, that wraps up our very first podcast,
Yay.
the Diana episode of season 12. Thank you for going on this journey with us.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Thanks again, and remember to stay out of the shade.